in your office, this is where the problems occur. And if you're having people come up to the front desk saying, how many appointments do I have left? Or even, again, the same thing as you're promoting care plans, corrective care plans, and you're getting a lot of pay-as-you-goes, or people choosing not to go on a care plan, or people quitting and not following through their care plan. A lot of it comes down to the fact that your team is just not on the same page. Your timing is off. This month, when I was doing some reflecting back on when we were at our peak in practice, and we sustained that for quite a number of years, very, very high volume for quite a number of years. But I know it was because we had a great team, and the majority of that team is still there nearly 30 years later. So my main CA has been there almost 30 years. She's as old as my second son, so that's 28 years. So it really makes a difference when you can have a team that's fully engaged. So this month, I'd really like to focus on team training and getting your team up to speed, because if you've been in practice for any more than a year or two and you've had your own practice, there are challenges with your team. People leave, people come and go, but getting your team up to speed and getting them engaged and passionate about serving the communities and really promoting chiropractic the way that you want it promoted can be a challenge. So what I want to do is start today by going through huddles. And again, I'd love to make this call interactive. I don't want it to be all one way. So if you guys have things that are working for you, you want to share with the group, that is really, really a benefit. So please join in. So I'm going to go through the idea of really what a huddle is. I've made some notes here, and I'd love to give you some tips on how to have a great huddle. But ultimately, the big picture, I want you guys to think about the big picture is creating this team that can serve in a big way, creating a culture in your office, and creating an environment where people want to be there. They want to be there far beyond pain relief. They want to bring their families. They want to refer, because you guys are so on point. Everybody knows how well trained you are, and people feel that. Your patients feel it. They feel like they're being well taken care of and all their needs are being met. Here's the big thing, and I want to compare this. I was fortunate enough to play varsity sports. So I played university football. I played a lot of football in high school. And we had a lot of success in high school as a team and then individually. So I got recruited to go play football, and I got recruited to a few different schools, but I chose to go to University of Guelph. And that was a great choice because University of Guelph, we had a fantastic football team. Many of the guys I played with ended up going and playing professional football, a couple of which actually ended up in the NFL, and many of which ended up in the CFL. I was not one of those guys. I just knew where my place was. I enjoyed being part of it, but I knew that was not a future for me. So, but here's the really interesting thing, and that this is what I learned from the coach that we had. And he was a very hard-nosed coach. Like he was, and I'm going to say verging on degrading to people, but that was his coaching style. But I give him credit for this one thing, and this was, he was very well prepared and helped us as a team become very well prepared. In fact, if you can think of this as and football is a great example, because if anybody that knows football or watches football, every single play, the team huddles. Whether you're on offense, whether you're on defense, the team huddles, and you get organized to run the play that you want and make sure everybody is on the same page. Everybody knows the snap count. Everybody knows their patterns that they're running. Everybody knows their blocking assignments, whatever it is. But here's the thing, and this is where I give this coach credit, the coach that we had at University of Guelph. We practiced how we would prepare for huddles. So in other words, we huddled for the huddle. And that was because we wanted to make sure that we knew exactly, because the huddle, you're in the huddle for maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds before the play, and you have to be very, very engaged in what's going on. So in other words, if the quarterback calls a play, every receiver needs to know exactly what route they're running. Every offensive lineman needs to know exactly who they're blocking and which way they're leading with. We need to know the snap count. So one thing that we did very well at Guelph was we were very well prepared for each play. Because the last thing you'd want, you get up to the line of scrimmage, and if somebody's not fully engaged or is not 100% into it, they run the wrong route. And here's the thing is that when the quarterback would drop back for a pass, he would be throwing the ball to an area knowing that the receiver was going to make a cut and head to that area. So he would throw the ball literally before the receiver made the cut. And when he could do that well, the timing was excellent. But if the receiver turned in instead of turning out, the play would fall apart or the ball would get intercepted or whatever that might happen, you know. So one thing that we were really good at was preparing for the plays. And what happened was is that through the season we got better and better and better. We ended up the regular season 4-3. So we had a mediocre regular season. We just barely snuck into the playoffs, but everything clicked in the playoffs and we went right through the playoffs and ended up winning the Vanier Cup. But I know because we weren't the most talented team, we weren't the biggest team, we weren't the fastest team. But one thing we did really well was our timing was excellent and everybody knew what their role was on every single play. And I compare that now to chiropractic when we go into the office, and that really transpired when we built our team. And I use that analogy very much with the team is that every single shift we huddled pre-shift. And if we had 2 shifts a day or 3 shifts a day, we would huddle before every shift so everybody was on the same page. And that's I know that's what helped us grow a very, very successful practice. So everybody's on the same page. So what happens when there's no huddle? Obviously, in your office, this is where the problems occur. And if you're having people come up to the front desk saying, how many appointments do I have left? Or even, again, the same thing is you're promoting care plans, corrective care plans, and you're getting a lot of pay-as-you-goes, or people choosing not to go on a care plan, or people quitting and not following through their care plan. A lot of it comes down to the fact that your team is just not on the same page. Your timing is off. They're not getting the proper messages across to these people. So people aren't getting inspired, and people aren't changing their paradigm to stay in chiropractic for the long term. So the common problem is nobody knows who requires special attention, right? So this might happen at the front desk. When you're prepared, you know who's coming in and you have a plan for each person, especially those that require special attention. You're not prepared for difficult conversations and you're missing opportunities to celebrate patient milestones. And these are big, big things that grow a much more successful practice. So if it's a chiropractic assistant or a tech CA, you're unaware of who needs a re-exam, so these don't get done on time, whether it's re-x-rays or rescans. You're not prepared for patient education moments, or you miss opportunities to reinforce recommendations or stimulate referrals. And again, if it's the doctor that's off track or the huddle didn't happen, the doctor might be surprised by schedule changes, or you might be unprepared for some patient concerns, and you just lose your efficiency throughout the day. You end up having these hard conversations because you go into these appointments with people and you get blindsided. And nobody wants to be blindsided. It's awkward, and typically everybody comes out of it feeling just like it wasn't a very good interaction. And here's the big thing is that your patients feel it. When you're unprepared, your patients feel the decrease or the decline in energy in your office. And if you want to create a culture in your office, you want people to walk into your office and feel the energy. And a lot of people, and you've heard it, when you're on point, and we used to hear this all the time, people feel better when they walk in the door. They feel the positivity, they feel the energy because everybody is on the same page. So that's one thing that you really want to try to create in your office. Patients don't know that you had a huddle, but they definitely know when you didn't, if that makes sense. And because there's confusion, there's delays, you get mixed messages, there's this lack of enthusiasm, and there's this disconnection between your team. Okay, so that's really, really, really important. Okay, so the whole purpose of the huddle, okay, and this is, we made this an absolute, like, non-negotiable. Every single shift, whatever time we started with patients, it was minimum 15 minutes everybody had to be there. If you were there 14 minutes before your shift started, you were late. And even if you showed up on time, that's late. Everybody had to come to the huddle prepared. So a great huddle accomplishes 3 objectives. And that was number 1, everybody's on the same page. So everybody's informed. What's happening today? Who needs attention? What challenges may arise and what opportunities exist. We came prepared. So everybody had their role on what to bring to huddle. So what was your responsibility? What's your priority? And what is the objective of the day? The big thing was too, is that we always had events coming up. So we had our monthly nutrition talk, we had a dinner coming up, we had a makeover coming up, whatever it was. So everybody knew off the tip of their tongue, when's the next makeover? We would all make sure that that was discussed in huddle. Everybody knew when's the next dinner, where is it? So all the details were right there. We discussed them, we trained on them, we practiced them, and we brought it up every single huddle. And then the last thing was that, and this was my job, was to inspire everyone. Everybody needs to know why they're there. There's people that are sick, suffering, and dying, and they're looking for answers. They're looking for us, and we wanted to be the lighthouse. So for us to be the lighthouse, all of us needed to shine bright. So we need to make sure we're sharing inspiration for everybody in the office. And that really helped create the energy and help create the culture. So everyone begins the day energized, focused on serving people at the highest level. So we had a huddle preparation checklist. Okay. And this was, like I said earlier about preparing for the huddle, when we did this in football, we practiced how the huddle would go. So we had this huddle preparation checklist. So everybody had the responsibility. So we were prepared before it starts. So every team member brought their designated prepared items to huddle. Like you don't show up to huddle empty-handed. You show up with your homework done, whether you do it the night before, whether you do it the morning of, whatever it is, you come to huddle prepared. So we had a schedule review. So this was to go over what was happening during the day. So the total number of visits scheduled in the day, we went over the day sheet. We looked at all the special appointments. So any new patients, any re-exams, day ones, day twos, progress evaluations, family appointments, special consultations, long-term care reviews, re-signs, any financial appointments where somebody was having a challenge or needed some sort of special arrangement, or reactivations if somebody was coming back after a long absence. We looked at patient opportunities, so potential referrals. And we were very big on having the whole family under care. So we would identify in huddle who's coming in today that still doesn't have their family members checked. So we would have them on the tip of our tongue and know exactly who they were and have some sort of a plan before the day started so that when that person came in, we would have that plan, what we were going to say, how we were going to address that. Patients nearing the end of their care plan. And, we would get to the point where we had it very regular, where we would start to plant seeds about their next care plan. So we didn't get to the point where the patient's saying, oh, how many visits do I have left? Where they're thinking of quitting, we're already pre-planting in their mind that this is just the next step. And there's going to be another care plan suggested at the end of that. We're going to do a re-x-ray. We're going to do a rescan. So we identified those patients who were getting closer. The other thing about that was the patients that were getting close to the care plan, we gave them special attention. So if we had a nutrition talk coming up or if we had a dinner coming up, we would intentionally make a special invitation to those people coming to near the end of their care plan to invite them to those events, to keep them into our culture. So we really tried to pay attention to that. And then there were patients who needed additional education. So especially those off-track patients. It's the patient that's missing an appointment, and we identified them in huddle. Like, here's Bob's on the list today, and Bob's missed the last 2 weeks of care. He's supposed to be here 3 times a week. How are we going to manage that? So we actually had a plan. So we made sure that the private consultation room was available at the time that Bob was coming in. So he's not coming in to get adjusted today. He's coming into the private consultation room so I can have a face-to-face conversation with him. We would identify celebrations. So this was a great time to communicate amongst the team. Has somebody had a great success story? Has somebody, said something at the front desk that the doctor didn't hear, that they were having some great change in their health or something miraculous has happened? Maybe it's a patient milestone. Maybe somebody turned a magical birthday. They just turned 60. They just turned, 70, whatever that might be. Care anniversaries. Somebody's been here for 2 years or 3 years of care or 5 years of care. We'd have a big celebration, whether it's a special birthday party, an anniversary, somebody's children were getting married, or somebody had a new baby, whatever that was. It was all the special things that were happening. So we became part of the family. We wanted them to feel part of our family, but we wanted us to feel like we were part of their family as well. Engagements or even personal achievements. So all this stuff was discussed in huddles as we went through that day sheet. And that was, again, really trying to create the culture of having them feel like they were part of the team. They were part of our family. There's certain challenges that always come up, and you guys know there's always these challenges that happen. So whether it's difficult conversations that you have to have with a patient, I was really big on holding patients accountable. So if somebody committed that they were bringing a spouse to the doctor's report, or if somebody committed that they were coming in 3 times a week, or if somebody committed to a financial arrangement and then didn't follow through with any of those things, that would be the time we would try to set up a personal consultation. And I would go into it with love and compassion, but I would also go into it with accountability. saying that if we're going to have a relationship here, we both have to uphold the part of our agreement that we had, our verbal agreement that we made. So we want the best results for everybody here. Let's make sure that we have these difficult conversations. So we would pre-plan that in huddle. Any patients with concerns, whether it be a financial concern or maybe it's a time they're going away, whatever that is, financial issues, compliance challenges, scheduling conflicts that the team could deal with, or maybe it was team coverage issues. Like one of our team is going away on holidays. How are we covering? What are we doing to adapt? And so we would again talk about these in huddle, so at least we're all knowing what's happening. And then some of the operational considerations. So maybe it's a staffing change. It's a new staff member coming in. Maybe we've got somebody coming in to shadow. We had all kinds of different doctors or even team members come in to shadow our team. Absences. If we had an equipment issue, like let's say our scan unit was broken down, how are we managing that? Maybe we had a HARP test or something for our x-ray equipment. So the x-ray equipment was out of commission that day. How are we adapting to that? Any type of supplies needed, like if one of the team members knew we were out of face paper, we had a system to make sure that everybody knew what was happening. And then this was also the time that we would talk about, okay, what are the things upcoming? So any community events that we're having, hey, we're going to do a screening or set up a booth at the local 5K run that happens annually. Or Dr. Collins going to do a talk at the Rotary Club. So what do we need for that? Do we need some flyers? Do we need some brochures? And we would prepare, like everybody would be on the same page to prepare for those things coming up so we would know exactly what's happening. If we had an event coming up, do we have flyers? And we discussed this in huddle. Are there enough flyers at every single table? So we'd make sure in huddle we knew that. And so that one of the team members say, okay, I'm going to get all that stuff done. And it would be done right at the beginning of the shift and put out there so it's ready for the day. Any marketing campaigns, if there was a change in, like, let's say we did something different online, we had a different offer, we changed our offer, we would make sure that everybody knew what was happening so there's no confusion. So if our offer changed from $75 to $49, at least all the team knew so they're not giving misinformation to people about what's happening. Or even going over the office tour, because we constantly try to improve our office tour, like our new patient tour. We wanted to make sure that that was high end all the time. How it was presented, how it was worded, how we would show it, what order it would happen in. And that would, again, we would talk about that, not only in training, but again, we would just kind of go over it in huddle. If we've trained on it earlier in the week, we could, again, just refresh in a quick version during the huddle so we're on the same page. One of our team members was responsible for bringing the monthly stats into huddle. So she had a sheet, and I've talked about this all the time. And this, I think, was really the foundation of how we grew and we did it just on a clipboard, that she would have every single month on a different page and all the new patients of that month. And then did they make it to day 2? What was the date of their doctor's report? Did they make it, or, did they sign on to a care plan? What care plan did they sign on to? And so we would know exactly just by looking at that sheet where people were, so we could easily refer to, we see somebody's name on the sheet and I go, hey, what happened to them? They were supposed to be here for their day 2. And I see they're on the schedule for an adjustment today. What happened? Or they were supposed to be at doctor's report last week and here they are back in today for an adjustment. What's going on? We could go back to the sheet and know exactly what happened. We would have our stats, but then we would also talk about our goals. Are we on track to meet our goals for the week? How are we doing? Do we need to try to stimulate more families coming in, or do we need to try to stimulate more referrals, or can we specifically target 5 people during the day to come to our dinner and bring a guest? So that was, again, a way for us to, again, just kind of keep on track to get to where we wanted to be. So whether it's a weekly visit goal, monthly visit goal, new patient goals, re-examination goals, and again, workshop registrations, like how many people are signed up for the next nutrition talk. Okay, let's really focus on getting more people to that. If we've only got a small number signed up for that, let's really focus on that. And again, our retention goals. Are people re-signing? How are our re-signs going? So I kind of made a breakdown of this is just the general huddle structure. Now, I would say, and again, this is where I want you guys to share, is what is working for you. What should happen during a huddle? And I would say give yourself minimum 15 minutes. I think you can accomplish a lot, especially when everybody's prepared and organized in that 15 minutes. So here's the general order of events as far as our huddle structure. So I was always the one that would open it, and I would try to open it with inspiration. I wanted to just wake people up. So I would prepare every single day or prepare for the week for what I was going to talk about in huddle. So I wouldn't come empty-handed. I would always bring something to huddle. So starting with energy. So maybe it's a gratitude moment. Maybe it's just something to say, hey, I'd like to go around the room here and talk about what we're really grateful for. And sometimes that can be very emotional. It can really change people's state. What were our big wins from yesterday? Like what happened yesterday? Did we have a great patient success story? Or I would go in recognizing the team, that something that somebody did really well. This would be a time for praise, not for cutting people down. And I always had this mindset where wanted to praise in public, but criticize in private. So we had our hard conversations one-on-one privately, but in public, in a huddle or in a staff meeting, that would be a time for praise all the time. We would go over the schedule. So our front desk CA was responsible for bringing the schedule. So she would bring the day sheet and she would have highlighted on that day sheet. There was all different colors and there was a code. So new patients would be in pink. Day twos would be in like lime green. Anybody that's due for doctor's report would be in yellow. So there was this schedule and all these patients were highlighted and colored. So we would go over all the new patients, day one, day two, day threes, who's coming in for re-exam, who's coming in next time for re-exam. So we could prepare them because we had a script for re-exam preparation. Like, hey, when you come in next time, don't do wobbling, don't do your wall tractioning. You're going to be getting a scan. That could throw off the way the nervous system adapts. So we would prepare them for that. We've arranged a half an hour for you to have your re-exam. Dr. Collins is going to be going over your x-rays, how you're progressing objectively. And so we would prepare the person. So a couple reasons for that. So we would make it a big deal for re-exam. So first of all, nobody's not showing up, like, because we've arranged this special time for them. And it was a way for us to add value to what we're looking for objectively. So, in other words, it was a way for us to get their mindset off of pain relief into how are they progressing objectively? How are their subluxations being corrected? How is their nervous system responding to chiropractic care? And again, it was all just part of the transition of changing their thinking from this pain relief into this proactive, innate driven, inside out thinking. So we would look at all these special situations and opportunities, and that would be the front desk person that would bring all that stuff together with that sheet. We would have a training moment. So keep in mind, we trained once a week. We had a half an hour, at least a half an hour training once a week on whether it was day one, day two, what happened during doctor's report, how we would do re-exams, these types of things. And we wanted everybody on the same page, but we would bring that into huddle. So maybe it's a script. So if we had a bunch of new patients today, let's go over the new patient tour really quickly in huddle. What are you going to, what type of order are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And we would have the person kind of go over all these different, and we'd, either say that's fantastic, or we'd say, hey, why don't we add this in, whatever that might be. The way we talked about the way we would communicate with people, new patient procedures, any type of retention strategy, how to ask for referrals, who to target for referrals that day. Again, we wanted people to feel the culture. So we wanted our service to be excellent. And we would always have some little bit of chiropractic philosophy, whether it was Green Book philosophy, chiropractic philosophy, or whether it was something against medicine. Maybe it was a side effect of a common medication. Or maybe a patient brought up a medication that they were taking, or maybe they brought in their empty medication bottle that they're no longer needing that medication. It's beta blockers. They're off their beta blockers. They brought the empty bottle in, threw it in our container at the front desk. We had this clear plastic Rubbermaid container that was full of empty medication bottles, and so we would say, hey, Betty brought in her beta blockers. And I would say, do you know that beta blockers are one of the most common things for side effects for migraine headaches? So everybody would know that, So we would talk about all these different things that helped us just have more ammunition to share with people. We would always finish with some sort of energy and purpose. So, and we never end the huddle with logistics. We always ended with big vision. And that's why, we've talked about many times about having your mission statement on the wall. And it's something that everybody has bought into or contributed to. And it just comes with this level of there's a level of emotion attached to it. This is why we're here. This is why we do what we do. This is why we get up in the morning and come to work, not because we need a paycheck. We're coming actually to save lives. And so we would end with that inspiration and focus. So I want you guys to think about, and the next part of this, what I did is I sort of put it together to think about, first of all, who's in your huddle? Like, and I want to say to you, because a lot of you have schedules where, you might start the day at 8 o'clock, and then another team member joins in at 9 o'clock, and then another doctor comes in at 10 o'clock. And what they do is they just jump into the shift. There's no preparation. They just kind of show up in the middle of the shift and jump. That can't happen. That's a sign that you need to reevaluate your schedule and redo your schedule. So every team that works together needs a time to prepare. You need a time to have a huddle. So however you need to rearrange your schedule so that you have those few minutes, 15 minutes at least, to huddle and prepare for that shift. And I don't care if the shift's an hour long, 2 hours long, it doesn't matter. You need that time. So the doctor has got to be the lead. The doctor, no, there's no team member that's going to exceed the passion for saving lives than the doctor. So you guys have to take the responsibility of being the leader. So the doctor sets the tone. The team never will exceed the doctor's level of energy. So if you're coming in kind of like run down or hungover or whatever that might be, if you're feeling that way, you're out of state, your team will be less than where you're at. So you need a preparation schedule to get yourself into state. Okay. Here's some responsibilities for you, the doctors. Okay. So first of all, you're the leader of the huddle. You have to provide inspiration, review the priorities. You've delegated to each of the team members what their responsibilities are. And this is where you create clarity. So clarify your objectives, celebrate the wins, do a little bit of brief teaching, and cast a big vision. You are the encourager for the team. You really have to take on that role. Your front desk person, they're the person that does all the logistics. They're the ones that come with the schedule. So even if there's just two people in the huddle, the doctor and the front desk person would do the majority of all the logistic stuff. So go over all the new patients, day 1, day 2, day 3s, reactivations, schedule, any gaps in your schedule, financial conversations, and patient celebrations. So, and if there's a checklist, the front desk person can then come prepared. They know all these things. So if they see that, Fred is coming in today and it's Fred's 75th birthday, she can write that or he can write that on the schedule so that everybody knows it's happening. You want to make exceptional first impressions with new patients. So make sure that you're all on the same point, or even if it's, and I'm going to say not just new patients, but anybody in their first month of care. That is the first impression, right? You want patients there for a lifetime. The first month of care is really, really important. Make sure that there's going to be smooth patient flow. And again, this is the front desk person. The front desk person is always looking for how can we make sure the schedule is going to be as adaptable as possible. Warm welcomes. And this is one thing our team was really good at, was getting up off the chair, walking around the desk, giving people hugs, making sure they felt like they were the most important person coming in the office every single day. And that really helped build great relationships. Here's an interesting thing when it comes to huddles and organizing things. And again, this is, so if you have two CAs, you have a front desk person who's in charge of the schedule, and you have a tech CA or a back office chiropractic assistant, they're the ones that are in charge of the re-exam and the scans and helping out with all of the back office stuff that, the patient follow through with their day 1, day 2, day 3 stuff. This is again where you can review what's happening during the day with that part of that chiropractic assistant. So going over exactly like who's due for the re-exam, what's happening during the re-exam, and here's the big thing is what is the next step? And we always talked about it in huddle. So if we had a day 1, when are we getting this person in for day 2? When's the next? And we always had a rule. It happened within 24 hours. That was the mainstay. When can we get them in? If the doctor's there on Friday, well, this would have to happen then on Monday if we're not open Saturday. Whatever that is, when's the next possible day for that day 1 to be in? So if it's a day 2, when's the next doctor's report? If it's a re-exam or re-x-ray, when is the report happening? Is it happening that day or is it happening the next day? So everybody knows what the next step is for those special appointments. So any the tech CA would be involved in setting up as far as all the details of the re-exams, the scans, the imaging, any type of patient education opportunities, like who would be a good person to come to those workshops or to a dinner. Has so and so not brought their spouse in yet? That would be a perfect couple to, or a perfect patient to ask to come to the next dinner and bring their spouse. It would be a very easy way to get the spouse involved in the culture. So these were all the little details that we would talk about. And the Texier came with that mindset and having those names ready to talk about to get us all on the same page for those names. And again, the Texier would be really responsible for clinic flow. So if there was a bottleneck, like if there's a bottleneck in your clinic where whether it's an adjusting table or whether it's a re-exam area or x-ray room where you only have one of them and it can only be used for one person at a time, the Texier would kind of foresee or foreshadow or troubleshoot areas where there might be a bottleneck. Okay, we've got 3 people booked for a re-exam at 10:15 this morning. So how is this all going to work? What's going to happen? So we would make a plan based on the schedule. So we're just focusing on efficiency, consistency, just reinforcing our recommendations and supporting just that patient understanding. If you have an associate doctor, okay, that's involved in your huddle and you're there at the same time, the associate doctor could be involved in patient cases. And this is one thing too, is that we had a regular schedule where we would go over new patient x-rays. And I would actually just show the team the lateral cervical x-ray of a new patient so they could see how degenerative it was or how kyphotic it was or whether there's bone spurs or disc degeneration. And we'd relate that to all of their health concerns and what's happening, why they're not going to get to their hot button, why they're never going to play with their grandkids, why they're going to die a painful, shortened life because everybody sees their x-rays. So they're all on the same page and they feel this empathy, this compassion for this new patient that has just come in. So now this person's coming in for the day 2, but the whole team has now seen their x-rays. So we're all on the same page. So it's much easier then for the front desk to go into state and say, Mary, I'm so happy you're back today. Dr. Collin discussed how concerned he was of what he found in your exam findings yesterday. And we're going to do everything we can to get those subluxations corrected and get your life back. So if they can see that and they're prepared, it becomes real. They're not faking anything and they can jump into state a lot quicker. So we review the patient cases, re-exams, clinical objectives, any type of follow-up conversations. And the big picture was we just wanted to focus on clinical excellence. If we worked as a team, we would look like we knew what the heck we were doing. It just brought our professionalism up. And therefore, we'd have no problem getting people to sign on for care plans or paying or whatever it was because it exemplified that professionalism. It was consistency in the messaging. So all team members, everybody leaves the huddle knowing what success looks like, what the responsibilities are with a plan for the day, what the office priorities were, or who we were going to prioritize our attention to during that shift. There were a certain number of people we needed to really prioritize our attention to, who needed special attention, and everybody knew what are all the upcoming events and when they are. So there's no question. When's the next nutrition talk? We all knew exactly when that was. And then we created this passion during the huddle. Facts inform, but emotion inspires. So people follow emotion more than information. And so that's something that I really took responsibility in trying to help them to understand how important the job was that we had in people's lives. So whether we shared a patient story, whether we read a testimonial, celebrate team wins, whether it's great retention or whether that is, and remind everybody of our mission, whether it's restoring health naturally, getting people off meds, helping families thrive, serving our community, and changing lives through chiropractic. So then closing the huddle, we just had this team declaration. So we would ask, like, who are we? And this is one thing I say to you guys very often, and I say on my coaching calls, is that you want to ask each and every team member who, first of all, what is chiropractic? And make sure that they are very articulate in explaining chiropractic in the way you want it explained. And number 2, why are we different? What makes us different? So we would talk about that in huddle. Who are we? And the team would respond with some sort of a predetermined statement like, we change lives, we serve with excellence, we deliver extraordinary experiences, we create a culture, whatever that was. We would talk about in our huddle. Sometimes we would end with gratitude. Like everybody would go around the table and just say what they're grateful for. And often it was, I'm so grateful for each of you guys of being together on this mission. And we would remind each other, like, this is our big purpose and why we came here today. Some of us didn't want to show up today. We had other things on our plate. We have family issues, whatever that is. But someday or today, someone will walk into this office discouraged, hurting, overwhelmed, uncertain. We have this incredible opportunity to change their day, their health, and perhaps their future. We have this opportunity to change their life. So let's make every single interaction count. We would have a team break where we'd throw our hands in and go, let's go, or whatever that was, or we would end in prayer. So it would be something inspirational. Sometimes I'd actually even play a song. I'd bring a song into my phone. It might be some sort of an inspirational song or a song, just a portion of a song lyric, whatever that was, if I felt that that was appropriate. So just remember that the whole purpose of the shuttle, it's not about, the whole purpose of the huddle is not about schedule. It's not about necessarily announcements, checking boxes or whatnot. It's really where we build our culture. It's where our expectations are established. It's where we develop team leaders, right? We lift our team up, and it's where our office becomes extraordinary. We want to make sure that our team knows and is totally firm on the fact that our office is extraordinary. And if we can win that first 15 minutes of the day, the next 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it's going to be, tends to go a lot smoother.